The topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Connected Table, your show for introducing you to amazing people around the world in wine, food, spirits, and hospitality. We're Melanie Young and David Ransom. We love traveling and sharing with you our discoveries. We're excited because we are in our hometown, New Orleans, to introduce you to a chef who has a lot of acclaim, many awards under her belt, and she's been really hard to nail down. We're really excited to have her today. We are going to be talking with Chef Nina Compton, whose restaurant here in New Orleans, Compère Lapin, is celebrating 10 years this year. Growing up in the Caribbean island of St. Lucia, Chef Nina Compton developed a strong connection between food and community. She was drawn to the city of New Orleans after a guest appearance and becoming a finalist on Bravo Television's New Orleans edition. I think it was season 11, where she was a fan favorite. And it is where she has chosen to settle and have her home. It's a great story which she shares in a new cookbook. It's autobiographical, Creole, Recipes, Stories, and Tings. I love that, from a St. Lucian chef's journey. And she joins us today to share that journey on the Connected Table. Nina Compton, finally, and welcome.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm happy to be here and chat about all things food and beverage and New Orleans.
Well, let's take you back to St. Lucia, where David has been.
It's one of the two islands I've actually been to in the Caribbean. Very exciting.
Oh.
You grew up in a family devoted to service. Talk to us about it.
So my dad was a lawyer and eventually went into politics. And he led St. Lucia to independence in 1979 from Britain. We became an independent island. He did serve of 3 terms as prime minister, and also just moving the island forward in terms of building different industries from agriculture to tourism. And it was a beautiful, my dad, he's passed away now, but growing up, it's people always ask me, what was it like to be the prime minister's daughter? And I always tell people, I never looked at my dad as the prime minister. He was always dad. And we had so many fond memories of growing up, and as busy as he was, we never felt like he was ever absent. He was always there. So we're a very tight-knit family. I have 4 siblings. So we had a beautiful childhood.
I love it when you write in your book, you had siblings. And you sounded like a tomboy. It sounded a very idyllic lifestyle. And you were a bit of a tomboy. You had you were the 4th of 5 children. Yes. It just sounded fun. And you had a grandmother who was English, and you cooked with her. Talk to us about that.
Yeah. So I tell people the kitchen is it's the busiest room in the house at any time of the day, whether it's in the morning or at night. It's always like a gathering place in our house. And my grandmother, who was a retired nurse, when she was getting older, she moved in with us. So she would wake up very early, about 5 a.m. in the morning, and she would start cooking and organizing for the day. And my grandmother was very rigid in her schedule. She would be up at this time. She'd have a breakfast at this time. And as I got older, I wanted to help her out because she always just seemed so busy. So I was very curious on what she was making or cooking for that day, and I wanted to be part of it.
In the cookbook, there's a recipe for banana tea sandwiches, because there was such an abundance of bananas, and your grandmother was British and had her regular tea. We tried those, by the way. We made them ourselves.
What do you think?
I loved them. They were really great. Yeah. I like cucumber sandwiches too, by the way.
Yeah. Those are good too. But my grandmother always had a banana. and she always had her afternoon tea, and she would just sit outside and take it all in. So that's something that really stuck out as a memory, was having her eat those and have her tea.
Nina, your family had hopes that you would go into, I think, what they called a respectable profession, but you always had dreams of being in the kitchen because you loved it so much at an early age. And tell us about the journey of saying, I want to be a chef. How did that come about?
Well, it's a funny story. So I wanted to end up in agriculture. I was about 16, and I thought that was just the path for me, because at that point, this was, St. Lucia's economy was thriving, and it was mostly agriculture. And the farming industry was very, very big. And for me, it just made natural sense to be somehow involved in that field. But then I also love cooking. And I remember cooking Christmas dinner for my family, because my mom and my grandmother and my aunt were always in that kitchen very early in the morning, making this big feast, serving it, and then cleaning up after. Just like just a chore for them. And I said, I'm going to cook the meal this year. And I remember seeing just the joy and excitement of my grandmother and my mom enjoying themselves and not having to worry about cleaning or doing anything. And I told my mom, I said, I think I want to be a chef. And she says, well, why would you want to be a chef? She's like, the money is terrible. It's a lot of stress. You're going to get cut. You're going to get burnt. And I said, I really want to do that because I saw how much joy my cooking brought to you, and I want to share it with other people. And she says, well, if you're really serious, you need to find a job. So that's when I got my first cooking job at Sandals Latok. And that's where I got bitten by the bug, and I haven't looked back since.
How old were you when you took that first job?
I was in 1997. I was 17 or 18. Yeah,
you were
crazy.
young.
I was very young, and it's one of those things with cooking. I never get bored with it. I'm always learning. Even though I've been doing this for almost 30 years, I still keep learning. I still keep traveling. I'm still excited about food, and the possibilities are endless. So I think for me, I never see it as a job. I see it as something I just really enjoy.
Well, yours is a journey. Montego Bay, New York, Miami, but first you did the respectable thing, I'm sure your family thought, and enrolled in the Culinary Institute of America.
Yeah.
So you weren't just going willy-nilly from kitchen to kitchen, and I'm sure that brought you structure and important management skills that you've applied to running restaurants, right?
It definitely did. I was actually working in Montego Bay, and I had rotated all the kitchens, all the outlets. And I had told the head chef one day, I said, I feel like I've hit a plateau and I'm not advancing. And he said, the next step for you would make sense is go to culinary school. He said, you can go to Johnson & Wales or you can go to the CIA. And the CIA was it just sounded right. And I figured, why not do that? So getting the formal training of understanding the mother sauces and the knife cuts and just so many things, the fundamentals of cooking before actually, for the next step, it was important to get those fundamentals down for my next restaurant that I would work in.
So what happened between that and getting the call for Bravo Top Chef? You worked for a number of chefs who we've actually had on the show, including Daniel Boulud and Norman Van Aken.
And Scott Conant.
And Scott Conant. We've had all of them on the show, and we've had a lot of fun with them. They're great guys and obviously wonderful chefs and mentors to a lot. Tell us about your experience with them.
So I was working at Scarpetta. We had just opened up we had reopened the Fontainebleau, this big rollout, amazing grand opening, and we were very, very busy, of course. And I remember we didn't normally get calls to the kitchen, but somehow this phone call comes in. I answered the phone, and they said, "We want to talk to Chef Nina." And I said, "Speaking." And they said, "Well, we're scouting for some contestants for this cooking show. We can't tell you the name, but we can send you the email." And somehow when I gave them my email, they spelled the name wrong. So I never got the email. So for a couple of days, I'm checking my email, nothing pops up. I search my spam, nothing comes. And they call back again like a week later. They said, hey, we sent you the email and we didn't get a response. And I said, I never got the email. So they said, well, spell it again. And they sent the email and pops up and I open and it says confidential. And it says we're scouting for the next top chef. And I kind of went silent for a second because I was very shocked. And I remember telling Scott at the time, I said, hey, they've approached me to do the show. And he said, well, what are you going to do? I said, I don't know. He says, well, you should definitely do it because you might win. And I said, okay, well, I got Scott's blessing. And I told my mom, I said, hey, I have a chance to do the show. And she said, I don't want you to do the show. It's too stressful for me. Please don't do it. I'm not going to watch the TV. And of course, being, listen to my mom, I said, okay, well, maybe I should just pass. And then I thought about it for a couple of days and I said, no, because I'll never get this chance again. So I said, Mom, I'm going to do the show. You don't have to watch it. I'm just going to go for it. So it was an amazing experience.
I was at physical therapy yesterday watching Top Chef because the episodes just keep going and going and going. And I said to David, wow, just thinking about what that brought you in terms of national attention. You became a finalist and a fan favorite. And knowing that, these reruns are just going on and on and on in dentist offices and everywhere. It's incredible. It's a gift that keeps giving. And Scott Conant was wise, given that he's done really well with television too, to say, do it, because it really changed your life. How did it change your life in every level?
I didn't realize how many people watched that show until the episode started airing. And there's these lifelong people that are very invested in the show, and they get attached to you over 6 weeks of being on television, that same time on Bravo. And I think for me, it was really a strange thing because people always say, hey, once the show wraps, your life will change. And I figured once the finale aired, I would be getting all these phone calls, do this, do that. And for a couple of months, nothing, I wasn't getting any emails, any phone calls. And I said, well, maybe I'm not going to get this big explosion of offers. And I would say it was about June when I just started getting all these invites. Can you cook in LA? Can you cook in Toronto? Can you do this? Can you do that? And it got really crazy because I was traveling a lot. I was riding the wave. I was having a great time. And, it was hard for me to juggle having the job, working for Scott and doing all this travel. And I said, this is something I'm going to enjoy, and I want to enjoy it to the fullest. So I told Scott, I think this is time for me to move on. I didn't have a plan at the time, but I wanted to just take a break to see what the next chapter is, and I wanted to think it through. So I took a couple of months off, and people were, asking me and my husband to open a restaurant in New York or Chicago, LA, Boston, and nothing really felt right until we got the call to the New Orleans restaurant. And I told my husband when we were flying to New Orleans, I said, I don't know how this is going to go because we've had so many interviews with so many people and nothing really spoke to us. And I remember we walked into the space, which was under construction. It was a complete mess. We walked in, we walked around, and we walked out. And we both said, that's the restaurant. We want to go with this one. And Compère is turning 10. It turned 10 on Monday. So when you see that time goes by so quickly, but opening a restaurant in New Orleans was never, if you told me this 15 years ago, I would have said it wouldn't happen because it was just so unbelievable.
It opened to a very big buzz, by the way, because I remember that. And I remember it just took off. And it's still taking off. I mean, it's fabulous. We recently dined there, and you're doing, I know, for your anniversary, the all hits. We had the very famous goat, your curry goat with sweet potato gnocchi. Yes. I have to tell you, Nina, I was brought up never to eat fried anything because I had weight conscious mom and grandmother. But your jerk chicken
Yeah.
with the hot honey. I was just like, I couldn't stop eating it. It was
Yeah,
so
I mean,
good.
who doesn't love fried chicken with grits? You know, it's
No,
Fabulous.
I can't think of one person, and we certainly loved it. That's for sure.
And then,
It was a
yeah.
total surprise to us.
Total surprise. I was thinking about it today, actually, as I was walking back from exercising. And the green papaya salad was just beautiful. I mean, every dish was just spot on. So, you know,
Thank
10
you.
years is a long lifetime for a restaurant. Your husband is Larry Miller. He's in the business. He's your partner. He's also a restaurant consultant. New Orleans is, you know, an easy place to have a restaurant, a hard place to have a restaurant. What have you learned? Well, first of all, what is it about New Orleans that drew you here? Because we have chosen New Orleans as our home as well.
Sure.
So talk to us about that, because we want people watching and listening to love New Orleans like you and I do.
Yeah, well, I think that the reason why I moved here is because it's for the people. I think the people here are really beautiful. They're very friendly, welcoming. When we were opening the restaurants, we wanted to kind of stay under the radar and quietly open. It didn't happen that way because when we moved to New Orleans, it was in the newspaper, people were buzzing, and people would stop us in the grocery store and they'd say, "Thank you so much for moving here. We're so excited." And it was very intimidating because New Orleans is such a big food city, and there's lots of culture and amazing restaurants. And here we are opening up a restaurant and we didn't know how it was going to be received. But the people and their excitement of this new restaurant coming, it brought me so much joy as a chef, because people are excited about food. They're adventurous. They want to know, they want to share their favorite restaurants with you. So it's a really giving culture. And we felt like we were welcomed right away. We didn't feel like an outsider. People were just very happy to have us and to open a restaurant. So it's really the people that made us want to move here.
People here are pretty happy. We love it when they say welcome home.
Yeah, they really are. And, you know, it's they're excited about food. So for me, it makes my job so much easier as a chef because people just love to eat.
So 10 years, congratulations.
Thank you.
How do you keep things fresh? What are, you know, a lot of people who are maybe listening and watching, maybe dreaming of opening a restaurant. It's not easy. We know it's not easy. We know summer is deadly everywhere, particularly New Orleans. Come to New Orleans in the summer. It's awesome. What is some advice that you would give other people or your younger self? Because also achieving fame early on and juggling that is hard.
It is. The industry is definitely, it's a tough one. But, you know, I think what people don't focus on is having a restaurant, it's a business. You know, we are creatives. We are making a beautiful food and beverage and creating an experience, but it's a business. It's a business first. And I think it's a lot of people kind of put that secondary. But it is a business first. But I think for me, if I told my younger self maybe to slow down a little bit, and I think having the power of no would have been helpful for me, because I always said yes to everything and everybody, and then before I know it, my calendar is filled and I'm doing interviews or a cooking class or something else, and not taking time for myself to recharge my batteries. And I think that's something that now, you know, 10 years in, I just start to say, I don't have to do every event. I don't have to do all of these things. Being a little more selective and trying to preserve my energy and my light so I could be the best boss to my staff, I think is really important.
You know, it's a long day to begin with.
Yeah.
And when you start adding things on top of all those long days, it does take its toll. That's for sure.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. You know, Nina, let's talk about the book that just came out. It's called Creole Cooking and Recipes and Stories and Tings from St. Lucian Chef's Journey. So let's talk about the book. It's a great book. We've gone through it. We've had a couple of recipes in it.
Starting with Creole and Tings.
I've been to St. Lucia. I was there a long time ago in 1988, and I had a great time there. and spent a week on the island with my girlfriend. Sorry, Melanie, it wasn't you. But
I was in Jamaica with a boyfriend.
there you go. There you
go. There you go. Now you're even.
But I adore St. Lucia. It's a beautiful island,
Thank you.
and it has a lot going on. So let's talk about the cookbook, which is an ode to that.
Yeah, well, I had been approached to do a cookbook after I did Top Chef, and I started writing the proposal, and then of course I got busy trying to open up the restaurant and move to New Orleans. I kind of put that on hold for a little bit, but once the pandemic hit, I said, hey, this thing is going to be around for a little bit. COVID was kind of a little bit of a big ripple for the restaurant industry, so we had to pivot a lot, and I said, maybe this is time to pick up the book again. So I got Osai to work with me on the project, who did I think a really beautiful job of extracting the stories from my brain. As a chef, I think we're very straight to the point, and she says, no, we need to put a little more in the head note about these recipes. So it was really about documenting Caribbean and also Creole culture throughout different areas, starting in St. Lucia, Jamaica, Miami, and then ending up in New Orleans. So it's really about the journey of the different Creole cultures through food and beverage, and kind of my journey of as a chef, starting in St. Lucia, and then book ending in New Orleans.
There is a lot of storytelling in the book, as well as recipes. The cover, just so you know, the co-author is Osai Endeline, who is a historical food writer and cultural food writer of significant note. The photos are great. This is a photo of Aki fritters, right?
No, this is the dasheen balls.
Oh, dasheen balls. Okay, that's right. The Aki fritters have a different shape. Yeah, there's some terrific photography in here. Who did the photography?
So we had Brittany Connolly, who did the cover and the food. We also had Casimo Harris. He did the lifestyle images. So I think we had a very powerful team that really understood my voice and my vision. I did tell Brittany that I wanted to make this book really beautiful and bright and tropical and make people want to go to the Caribbean after reading the book. And Osai, award-winning writer who's done some really beautiful ways of crafting my voice in the book as well. So I think I'm very proud of it. It's a lot of work. I think a lot of people think that a book is done in a couple of months. This took us 3.5 years. And we wanted to take our time with it. We didn't want to rush and put out a book because this is something that's out in the world and I can't take it back. So I wanted to make sure that everything was very thoughtful.
Well, a lot of these dishes are quite beautiful. In fact, we had a chef over for dinner who's from Mauritius, Dominique McKay, also a chef of note here in New Orleans. And he was thumbing through the book going, wow, this reminds me of home growing up in Mauritius. Oh. He was very touched by it. One of the dishes, because I love vegetables, is the kalaloo, because it's not all difficult. Some of these are very easy to do. And you can do this with almost any greens, but it's everything from fish to the Aki fritters to grilled lobster. I wish we got more lobster in New Orleans.
I wish too, yeah.
Yeah. What dishes in here, and taking it back to Compère Lapin, what are some that are similar to what you would find at Compère Lapin? I also want to bring Compère Lapin back in for a couple of reasons.
Yeah, of course.
But let's bridge that.
Yeah, so we have, of course, the buttermilk biscuits that people go crazy for. Yeah, so we have that in the recipe. We also have the hush puppies, which is the big one. Then we have the chalatelli with the shrimp and the rundown sauce. So there's some recipes that over the years we've had at Compère Lapin. So I'm just trying to document the recipes that the home cook can do at home and really have fun with it. I think that the book there are some very simple recipes, but there are some labor intensive recipes. But I think it's worth it. It's worth to put a little elbow grease into that recipe because the payoff is so wonderful.
The biscuits, I'm going to try it home. We had the biscuits and the hush puppies when we dined at Compère Lapin, and they're both fabulous. I'm a biscuit freak, and they were fabulous. The first thing I do when I eat a biscuit is I smell it. And I was like shoving it. David, smell this biscuit. It smells like a real biscuit. And I peel it. I mean, it's a whole process with me when I eat them. And they're served with this beautiful, pillow of butter. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
So why Compère Lapin? Let's just talk about the name, because Lapin means rabbit. Talk
Yeah.
about how the name came about.
So the folk tale Compère Lapin, which is an African tale, that we had the same book as a child growing up. And when I was moving here to do a restaurant, I wrote all these names in patois. And I was just Googling one day of, patois names in Louisiana. And that same book popped up. And I said, wow, this is so crazy, because a lot of people don't know that actual story as a folktale. And I said, this is it. This is a childhood story that I know. And it's, now we have it here in Louisiana. So that made sense for me to bridge the gap.
Is that Brother Rabbit or a different
Yeah, Brother Rabbit, yeah.
Okay. Okay, I know that's it. So that's interesting. If you go to the restaurant, there's rabbits everywhere.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, we have a lot of rabbits, and it's
not on the menu.
so many.
Yeah.
We've had rabbit on the menu once.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I think a lot of people, they always associate with a fuzzy little bunny. So we try not to.
That's pretty funny. So, the restaurant, which you and Larry own, is located in a terrific hotel. A friend of mine just stayed there and just raved about it. It's called the Old Number 77 Hotel in Chandlery. It's in the Warehouse District, the Arts District. So great location. And there's a wonderful art exhibit. If you go to the ladies' room and to the lobby, there's a terrific art exhibit that we kind of traverse through. But I understand that hotel is also having a big anniversary as well.
Yes.
So that's exciting.
Yes. So it's a lot of milestones this year, and we were part of the opening when they redid the hotel in 2015. So it's been an exciting time celebrating the restaurant and the hotel as well.
Well, we recommend both. When we have this list, everybody wants to know where to go. In New Orleans, we always say, stay here, go there. Mm-hmm. And it's a great location for many other things as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So you say on the website for Compère Lapin, meals aren't about trends, shock value, or opulence. Thank you. Meals are about moments, memories, and those who surround you at the table. Talk to us about that philosophy, because we have been to a few restaurants where it was all shock value, including the sticker shock.
Well, I think for us, people are dining out more and more, opposed to, let's say, 20 years ago. So one of the things we always tell the staff is listen, people have options. They don't have to come to our restaurant. They could go somewhere else. But when they do, they're making a conscious decision to dine with us. And we need to make sure that we exceed their expectations and create a moment and a memory. It's not just about a transaction of eating food and drinking a glass of wine and then paying. It's about connecting people through food and the experience, the music in the restaurant. So we're trying to create something where it's people want to come back because they felt welcome, they had a good time, they enjoyed themselves, and they want to make this a regular place to come.
I think that's important. One of the people who you worked with early on, Daniel Boulud, was asked someone asked him at a City Meals on Wheels event, why are you in this business? And you could answer that a million ways. He said, I want to serve people.
Oh, that's the best way. I think a lot of people just want to, again, create an experience and a memory for people. We're not doing it. Again, I think we are creatives. We're passionate people, chefs. And we want to share, connect with people. It's not, we don't have a glass between us. We're touching, feeling, smelling, and we want to have that nostalgia every single time. And we do that through food.
It's a connector. That's what we call our show, The Connected Table, for the same reason. It really is. Food is a cultural connection. It's a social connection. It can lift you up. It can bring people together in times of happiness, celebration, and also in grief.
Yeah, I agree.
And it all requires teamwork.
Yeah, you have a great team, by the way. We sat down with who sat down with Corey.
Okay, great. No, it's really about, it's not just about the food. It's also about the service. connecting with people and asking them, where are you from? And you find so many people from all over the city coming in, and they could be either here for a convention, or they could be coming because it's the birthday, or they're just here for whatever it is. But we always make sure that, it is, I always tell my staff that nobody's job is less important than Joe's job or Tom's job. Everybody has a very important role to play. So the bartender, the hostess, the server, the general manager, they have a very important role too. So we never minimize anybody's role being less. Everybody we treat with the most importance, because everybody is important.
It's a great philosophy. So Corey is your manager, and we were enamored by the wine list, the cocktail list too, which is terrific. But the wine list was well thought out, and we had a long discussion with him about that because there were some selections on there. It was a step above many of the wine lists in New Orleans.
Yeah,
not to knock wine lists in New Orleans, but there is a step above factor.
No, Corey does a great job. He's very, very excited about wine and beverage, and he gets very. He has a twinkle in his eye when he talks about wines. So
he certainly does.
Yeah.
Well, and one of the things he said was that, it's not the easiest cuisine to pair wine with, because there's a lot of spices involved and flavors that aren't normally associated with wine. So he says it's a lot of work for him, but he loves the challenge as well to create that pairing.
Nina, let's talk about community service. You've been called on to appear and do, and it's hard to pick and choose, but are there certain charities or philanthropic causes that you're committed to? And tell us about that aspect of your life, because that's important.
No, it definitely is. I think in New Orleans, the outreach and what people do with the community, all the foundations, it's just an easy extension for the restaurant as well. So we do partner with Son of the Saints to do a lot of their programs. We do their Christmas dinner every December. We cook for the boys, and we've done cooking classes for the boys. So just giving back in whatever capacity through maybe Roots of Music. We do a lot of stuff with the Link Foundation as well. So there's a lot of that in New Orleans, but we also do some national stuff, like Alex's Lemonade is a big one that we partner with. Also Southern Smoke, which is very near and dear to our heart, because it's a foundation that is focused on hospitality workers and giving them access to healthcare, counseling, money if there's a natural disaster. So that's one I think that's very important. So we lend our voice to whatever charity that really speaks to our hearts.
I think that's terrific. For those listening who are not from New Orleans, what is Son of a Saint?
So Son of the Saint is a foundation that helps. It's basically a mentorship program that takes boys at a very young age. I think the starting age is, I want to say 5. And they're young boys that don't have a father figure in their life. So they're paired with a mentor to help guide them in those young stages when they need the father the most. So things like taking them to sports, or how to do it, to tie a tie for the first time. All of those things, taking them to sports events. I think that's a very important thing for a child that needs that extra support.
It is important, and mentorship is critical for building confidence and self-esteem at a time when a lot of young people are feeling fragile for whatever reason. I mean, maybe they turn on the news. Maybe they live, with the fear of climate change. We live in the heart of hurricane season, and it which has started, and it's top of mind all the time. Yeah. And we've learned to live each day the best we can and just be prepared. How do you reconcile that in your life as you have settled here, but also have traveled and done some wonderful things to help others who've been impacted?
Yeah, I mean, hurricanes are definitely, that's a hard one. And it's, when you see climate change, nobody's really safe. Whether it's a hurricane, whether it's tornadoes, whether it's just, flash flooding. I think that we're all, prone to some kind of disaster, but it's, I think as a chef, you definitely immediately jump into help. I think that's just something that the chefs do, is if there's a, cooking for the people that had the fires in LA, we're on the front lines and we donate what we can, whether it's time, whether it's food, just to give, a voice and shine a light on the people that are in need. And you look at people like Jose Andres that does an amazing job of really showing this disaster happened and how we're going to move forward. And that's through first feeding people and bring them some comfort.
Chefs have long been first responders that do this voluntarily. They're not paid. When we lived in New York, or when I was living in New York during September 11th, I was in the heartbeat of all that, working to mobilize restaurants. And we did so many amazing things. And I think people underestimate or overlook that. Yeah. And I think it's actually, frankly, important when people make restaurant decisions. I mean, I look at, when we travel, interestingly, Nina, when we travel, we don't always look for the newest and the hottest and the latest anymore. We look for the most caring.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important. We look at a lot of things about because it is, when you go out and spend your money dining, you want to go where there's a wonderful food and hospitality, but you also want to know that this is a caring restaurant, that people respect the owner and the chef. Yeah. And that's really important. And I think people should take that into consideration, don't you?
I think so. I think it's really about what is that operation doing? And I think it's very important because we all need each other in some way or some form. And I am definitely a creature of habit when I go out, because I don't try the newest restaurants. I just like my oldies and my goodies, that I know what I'm going to get. And I think for me, as I get, older, I look at things where I just want to have a place where I know the people, I know what I'm going to eat and drink, and I know it's going to be really good, and I leave happy.
So, we're dying to ask you, tell us some of your hidden gems where you like to go as a local in New Orleans. I mean, we have our little favorite places. What about you?
There's so many. Definitely, for me, I would say Queen Trini. When I
Queen Trini Lisa, we've not been to yet.
No, we have not.
It's Haitian inspired, and I think it's another woman owner.
Yes. Yeah. So Charlie, who has fritai, beautiful Haitian food, and then Queen Trini has Trinidadian food. So when I want my fix, I definitely go there. Also, Addis Nola, the Ethiopian restaurant, has amazing food, and they just do a great job. And it's a son and mother that run the operation, and they talk so deeply and fondly of their coffee ceremony, which is something that you don't really see. So I think that's definitely, there's just so many people. And where do you go? And I get stumped, and I have to answer that in about an hour, because I have to go down the list of so many places. Also, Pesh, amazing seafood is really great. There's just so many.
It's so true. There's so many, and Addis Nola's, when we've been to for charity events, we actually haven't been. I just made a mental note, particularly when you say coffee ceremony. I think for everyone listening and watching, New Orleans is really a melting pot of so many cuisines, which is why I think it's really one of the top restaurant cities in the United States. And we lived in New York for many, many years. And gosh, it is fabulous. You can get anything there. But, New Orleans, with the exception of Maine lobster, I'm still looking for, you can get a lot of amazing things. And the Caribbean and African inspiration and influence is so strong here. And unlike many other places, maybe Charleston to a bit, but that's what is exciting. And that's what we love about Compère Lapin. You get that feel when you dine there.
Well, I definitely think, over the 10 years of us living in the city, we've seen the culinary landscape change and be more diverse. There's just like you said, every cuisine you could name of, and each year another new restaurant comes along bringing a different cuisine. So we are really fortunate to have that. And I think the chefs and the operators are really pushing it. Like restaurants like Saffron, amazing food, and I love Indian food. So there's just so much going on, over the 10 years, and I'm sure it's just going to get even broader.
I hope so.
I hope so too.
Meanwhile, we love that people swoon over curried goat, which a lot of people think, oh, I would never eat goat, but we ordered it and it was swoon worthy. Is that one of your standout dishes, or the ones you can't take off the menu?
That is definitely the one that cannot come off the menu.
I don't know, that jerk fried chicken's pretty up there too.
I know. That's a tough one too. That's a close second.
Yeah, and the biscuits and the hush puppies.
It's interesting because I heard. We think of it as a delicacy because curried goat isn't really very utilized in the United States, or goat isn't very utilized in the United States, but it's a worldwide big seller.
Yeah,
it's one of the most popular meat dishes in the world.
It's big in Italy.
Yeah.
So what's ahead for you?
Ahead for me is really taking a deep dive into Caribbean food a little bit more. I want to travel and see different islands and really submerge myself and basically bring recipes that a lot of people don't know about from islands such as Trinidad or Dominica. Just not the usual suspects. I want to bring something where it's like, hey, this region in, I don't know, Dominica, they do beautiful smoked meats, and showcase those things. So I really want to take a deeper dive as I look at the restaurant turning 10. What does the next chapter look like? And I think that is something that's really, really important to me in doing that.
It's important because the restaurant landscape and the dining landscape and the drinking landscape has changed quite a bit. And you have to factor that in without losing control of what you want to do, but also understanding that your customer is changing, and we all have read and heard everything,
Sure.
So being sensitive to that as well. And also economy too. The good thing is you can take simple ingredients and use wonderful spices and ways of cooking them to make them, as you say, it's not about shock value or opulence. I don't think we'll ever see lots of foam or, frozen CO2 on your menu. It's like, it's home cooking.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the way you would eat at home, right?
Right. And I think that is also something that is what I love about New Orleans. It's not about the frou-frou stuff. It's about soul satisfying food. So we don't see the foams and we don't see the deconstructed things because it just doesn't, we're not about that here.
We were in Italy and somebody served us, are you ready? Deconstructed pizza, like a splat of it in a pizza box. Isn't that weird? Yeah. We had a lot of weird food, and we love Italy. Yeah. We had some strange stuff.
That's a little strange.
It ranks up there. It really was.
The entire evening was strange.
It was called, unlike your culinary journey, ours was a journey, no menus, don't ask questions. And we were like, what is this?
Wow. That's bizarre.
Needless to say.
Yeah, it was. But, to each their own. I mean, that's why we did enjoy and do enjoy visiting Compère Lapin and recommend it, because you'll have food that when you see it, you'll understand it. Yes. And it's very flavorful. And you're not going to go, what is this? It's good. Right. It's really good. And we took home the leftovers and had the next day because it's also very generous, and it was really terrific. So again, we're talking with Nina Compton, who has won many awards. I have a history with the James Beard Awards. Congratulations on that. I hold awards here is awesome. I hope TV is amazing, but at the end of the day, it's what you deliver out of the kitchen and into your level of hospitality that matters more than anything. And I think that's an important way to leave as a final message to people, particularly anyone aspiring to have a career, that it's not about awards or contestants and fame. It's about something more. So leave us with that thought, Nina, for the person out there who may be saying, I want to be like Nina Compton.
I think, for me, I was never driven by winning awards. I was never saying, I'm going to do this because I want to win an award. Those just came along, pleasantly surprised by those things. I think my advice to anybody in this industry or coming up in this industry is just do it because you're passionate about it. Don't do it because you feel like this is something that's trendy. Stay true to what you are. And if you have a culinary voice or cuisine you want to showcase, be proud of that. I think that was something for me, my journey of cooking with so many chefs, that finally I was able to find my culinary voice and showcase Caribbean food in my restaurant. So I think just stay true to what you are and what you want to do. Always have a goal, whether it's a small goal or a big goal, but challenge yourself. I always tell people, don't ever get complacent, because that's an easy way to get a little too comfortable. But you have to be motivated. You have to challenge yourself. Try and improve every day, because nobody will do that for you. You have to do that for yourself.
Absolutely. And also know when to push stop and reset, which I think
Yes.
you've learned to do as well. And we all need to learn that more in this crazy world. Again, I'm going to hold up the book. It's great. Creole, which is a Caribbean term for Creole, in case you haven't figured that out. Recipes, stories, and tings. I learned that word when I was a little girl going to Jamaica. A St. Louis chef's journey. I used to go to Jamaica a lot as a little girl, so I loved seeing this and some of the dishes I used to eat when I was a little girl there. So congratulations on 10 years at Compère Lapin, a book, all your success, and living and enduring this crazy industry, right?
Yes.
And to all who are following, get out and come to New Orleans, please. This is a wonderful city year-round. And in the summer, it's quiet. You can get into every restaurant.
That's right. You can get a reservation.
And there's great culinary deals, restaurant week deals, and wonderful things in museums. And go check out Compère Lapin and the hotel, which, my friends all love, the old number 77 in Chandlery. You can go have a great stay, a meal, and never even step outside if it rains.
Yep, that's right.
Thank you again, Nina. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
You've been listening to The Connected Table Live with Melanie Young and David Ransom. We love sharing the stories of people in our industry with you, and we encourage you to get out there and expand your appetite and palate and discover, because we want you always to stay insatiably curious. Follow us at The Connected Table on Instagram and listen to our show on more than 65 podcasts around the world. We want you to...
And YouTube.
And YouTube now.
Mm-hmm.
So connect with us, and we'll be back with another show next week.